and Reimagining Work, featuring the product team at Google and the IT team at Pinterest. So before we kick it off, I wanted to let the audience know to be aware of a few housekeeping items. We received a lot of questions prior to the Hangout. So during the last 15 minutes of the live session, we'll do our best to answer the questions you sent prior to the live session. And you can still send in questions during the Hangout. Just keep an eye out for the short link at the bottom of the deck. This link will be here for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the presentation. We'll also be sending you a link to the recording soon after the Hangout on air. So if your colleagues couldn't make it today, you can forward them the link and we'll send it to you. So what's in store for today? We have a team putting on a live Chromebox for Meetings demo for the audience, and we're also featuring guest speakers from Pinterest to share their experience with Chromebox for Meetings, so you can hear directly from a peer. And before we take it away, I'd like to introduce you to the team presenting today. My name is Casey. I'm with Marketing at Google, helping businesses discover Chrome solutions for work. I'll be moderating the live session today. And our first speaker is Vidya Nagarajan, who has spent the last 7 years at Google. She's the product manager for Chromebox for Meetings. Her role focuses on bringing Chrome devices to power businesses and education. We also have Chester from the Chrome engineering team. He's been with Google focused on ensuring engineering meets the needs of our customers, and he's got a wealth of international experience with a background in technology and consulting. Vidya and Chester together will be demoing Chromebox for Meetings today. And last but not least, we're featuring Matt Thorne from Pinterest. He's one of the earliest Chromebox for Meetings adopters, and he's here to share with you his story about deploying it to all of Pinterest's global offices. And so with that, I'll kick it off to Vidya. And Vidya, why don't you tell us why Google created Chromebox for Meetings?
Great, thanks, Casey. So there are some general trends seen in the workplace today. More and more users want to stay connected and have more devices than ever seen before. And there's expected to be over 75 billion connected devices by the year 2020. So, next slide. More than ever, our jobs require us to be connected with remote teams. 72% of us now work with remote customers, 68% with remote.
I'm not sure if this is an issue everyone's experiencing, but it seems we can't hear Vidya. Sorry guys, just a quick technical issue. We're just getting this sorted out super quick. Vidya, just give us a thumbs up when you're ready. Sorry guys, just one more minute.
Can you go ahead and say something?
Hello?
Casey,
Looks like we're back online.
We're back
apologize for that.
So sorry about that, you guys. We know with events there's always a little hiccup and technical difficulties. So Vidya, I think we lost you on the slide where it says meet from anywhere on any device. Can you tell us how we can meet on any device with Chromebox for Meetings and Hangouts?
Sure, sounds good. So sorry again for all the technical difficulties. So with the general trend today is users want to stay connected. They want to be able to meet from anywhere on any device. Casey, next slide. So to address this challenge for remote conferencing, many companies are looking to invest in high-end video conferencing systems. But this is not really scalable to take it to all conference rooms, and it's also quite difficult to set up. Next slide, please. So at Google, we faced many of these complex problems, and so we approached it in the only way we know how, by building our way out of it. So over the years, we rolled out our own internal video conferencing system. And today, most of our meeting rooms actually have this. It's completely transformed our culture and made us more productive. And we wanted our customers to be also able to share this experience. So with Hangouts, we can now meet from anywhere on any device, whether it's a room system, a smartphone, a tablet, or a workstation. And Enterprise Hangouts supports up to 15 high-definition video feeds. Next slide, please. We've made several new changes to make Hangouts more ready for work. So first of all, it's way more simpler to get everyone on video meetings today. You are no longer required to have a Google Plus profile to be able to join a Hangout. Further, in the last few weeks, you might have noticed that anyone with any Google account can now join with just a simple link, a shareable link using which anybody can join a Hangout. In addition, we provide a guaranteed uptime SLA of 99.9%, and it also comes with various certifications. Next slide. So introducing Chromebox for Meetings to transform the meeting room experience. Chromebox for Meetings was launched earlier this year with the aim to bring video conferencing to every meeting room out there at a disruptive price point. While you need to bring your own display, everything else is included at a price point of $999. This includes the first year $250 annual software license fee. The package comprises of an Intel Core i7 Chromebox, a platform that is fast, secure, and simple from trusted brands like Asus and Dell. It also comes with a camera, microphone, and a speaker and a remote control. The software that is powered on these devices is Hangouts, along with a web-based management console to remotely manage and configure your fleet of Chromebox for Meetings devices wherever they are geographically distributed in the world. In addition, you can set up this package as a room system for all your conference rooms out there using Google Calendar, or you could also configure them as personal room systems if you'd like to use them at your home or even at your own workspace. The product comes with 24/7 support, and using authorized resellers, you can purchase these devices from any of our launched countries in the US, Canada, UK, France, Spain, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, and we're also looking to expand to many more countries down the road. Setting up a Chromebox for Meetings room system is extremely simple. All that you need to do is open up your package, plug in the display, complete the simple setup wizard, and then map the Google Calendar, and you're all done. And if you choose not to use Google Calendar, that is fine too. We're also looking to expand to larger conference rooms, and if you have a secondary display, all that you now need to do is just plug in your secondary display to your Chromebox Meetings unit, and there, you can present on one screen and see your audience participation on the other. We'll now go through, many businesses of all sizes have gone Google. And we're also going to have one of our key early adopters, Pinterest, who's going to be talking about their experience. But first, we're going to walk you through a very cool demo.
Great, thank you for the context video. I think this sets us up pretty well for the Chromebox for Meetings demo. So this demo is something that we've heard many of you ask for, and we're excited to show it to you live on a Hangout on Air today. I have Chester and Vidya here to go over the many features of Chromebox for Meetings. And with that, I'll pass it over to Chester and Vidya to show the audience the magic.
Thanks, Casey. Hi, everybody. Hope you can hear me okay. Actually, wanted to walk through the initial configuration for Chromebox for meetings, the actual initial splash screen that you see here. So the first thing that you'll notice when you actually boot up into the Chromebox for Meeting video conferencing unit is the beautiful background and the actual initial splash screen that we have here. The first thing you'll notice is you have the ability to quickly start or actually join a Hangout as the first option. The second option that we'll actually go into and demonstrate later is the ability to actually call directly to an actual phone or make an actual voice call. As you can see here, we have an integration with the actual calendar integration for Google Calendar. So this will actually give you, at a short glance, the ability to identify if a room is actually reserved. As you can see here, we have several reservations scheduled for this actual meeting room today. And with that, why don't we initially walk you through some of the initial key features here. So,
and just to note that if you're not using Google Calendar, that's not a problem at all. You can still join or type an ad hoc meeting, and we will go through that in a little bit.
Yep. So the first feature that I think is widely used within Google, and I think that many customers can actually take advantage of this feature, is the one-click meeting. So by walking into a room, you can not only see if there's actually a reservation that has actually taken place within the room, but you can actually select within the actual calendar view an actual meeting. So by selecting the actual calendar reservation and selecting a one-click meeting, you can join the video call. Hi, Jillian.
Hey guys, how's it going?
How are you?
Doing great.
Thanks. The next feature that I actually wanted to highlight was the ability to not only join the meeting, but the spontaneous ad hoc meetings. So traditionally, we have a lot of meetings that are potentially unscheduled. So in that case, you have the ability to quickly type in an actual non-persistent meeting name. So in this case, I'm actually going to type in the same meeting that we just joined.
Actually, let's use the meeting name Tofu.
Okay. So in that case, if we use the meeting name Tofu, we can type that actual meeting name in. Anybody within the organization can automatically be inside of that actual meeting name itself.
Hi, Julian. Thanks for joining us again.
All right, guys, have fun. Thanks.
Thanks. So as you can see with the spontaneous meeting, even if you don't have Google Calendar, for non-Google Apps customers, you can still be able to join a meeting. All that Chester did here was he picked up the remote, he typed in the meeting name, and boom, he was in the meeting. And there was Jillian, who was on the other side, and she was also able to meet with us.
Great. Thanks, Vidya. The next feature I wanted to highlight was, let's say we are in the actual meeting, CFM Hangouts on Air, and I wanted to wirelessly present into the actual meeting. So once that meeting has actually started, we can quickly, from any PC or endpoint, join the actual meeting to actually share screen and wirelessly present into the actual meeting itself. The actual link or URL is g.co/present, which initially launches an actual splash screen, which gives you the capability to type in the actual preset meeting name. Right. And the last feature that we wanted to highlight, and maybe Vidya, you can talk a little bit more about the actual ability to dial out to voice calls, but what are some of the business use cases that we actually use for that?
Yeah, so in addition to typing in meeting names, often enough, people want to be able to take in meetings from the road, while they're driving, in a conference, or from any device, wherever they are. And so with the call a phone feature, here, what all that Chester needs to do here is type in a phone number. So here, he could call in Jillian, or he could call in anybody else. And once he does there, the person is automatically connected
Thank you for calling
to the
Google.
meeting. So
If
here.
you know the extension of the person you would like to reach, dial it now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chester, for calling Google.
All right, Casey, we're going to hand it over back to you.
Sounds good. That was great, you guys. Thank you so much for that comprehensive demo. I'm hoping that gives the audience, somewhat of an overview of Chromebox for Meetings capabilities. So now that everyone is aware of the features, I'm going to turn it over to our featured speaker to show how he took those capabilities to drive better collaboration throughout global expansion at Pinterest. On the Hangout, we have Matt Thorne, head of IT at Pinterest. Matt has extensive experience in being the technology driver for many of the Bay Area's largest startup turned enterprises. He's been with Pinterest for 1.5 years now, but even in that amount of time, he's driven large changes in IT to continue supporting the tight-knit, tech-forward startup culture that Pinterest embraces. And also with Matt, as you can see, we also have Rich on the call. Rich is the AV engineer at Pinterest who had a large role in rolling out Chromebox for Meetings. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matt to quickly introduce himself. Tell us what it's like to work at Pinterest, and tell us about your experience with Chromebox for Meetings. So Matt, take it away.
Cool. Thanks, Casey. I'm Matt, head of IT here at Pinterest, and this is Rich. He's our AV engineer. I've been here at Pinterest about 1.5 years. IT at Pinterest is a team of 7 people supporting about 500 users worldwide in 8 U.S. and international offices. So what's it like to work at Pinterest? What's our culture like? Pinterest is a very design-led organization. We're also very engineering forward and very engineering driven, but one of our co-founders is a designer, so design is something that's very important in all aspects of things that we do here. So that goes down to the design of the office space itself and how collaboration works. So we want the space in which we work to be very comfortable, a very comfortable space in which to be creative. And so I'd also mention that we're tech forward, but we value scrappiness. So what that means to us is that technology and systems here are understated but also highly functional. For example, you would see Hangouts if you came to our office, but you would never see like a Tandberg telepresence or anything like that. This is not what we consider scrappy. So we also value face-to-face communication, we value authenticity, we value the ability to move quickly, and all of those things help us keep our startup feel. That's really important to us. One of our values is that we put pinners first. Pinners are our users, and so we're constantly looking for ways to collaborate more efficiently, especially as we grow out of one central building in San Francisco and into multiple buildings in San Francisco and beyond, out into the rest of the U.S. and the world. So how did we do that before Chromebox for Meetings? Before Hangouts, we didn't really have a video conferencing system at all. We kind of communicated in an ad hoc way with each other. Mostly we were in one building, so it was easy to get face-to-face, but for remote people, we would use phone calls, mobile phones, desk phones, call bridges, Skype, one-on-one hangouts, but there was nothing consistent, there was no integrations, and there wasn't really anything good for video or collaboration.
So thank you for the context, Matt. It's apparent that there wasn't consistency in the way you met remotely prior to Chromebox Meetings. Can you tell the audience, what were your feature must-haves when you were looking for a particular meeting solution?
Sure. Well, number one was a tight calendar integration. Other video conferencing products might require, an additional application or, additional software or plugins that, really don't make the meeting scheduling experience any easier. So we were looking for something that was really tightly integrated into the calendar. Second would be a really easy learning curve. In past jobs, video conferencing has been something that's been really hard for users to grasp and to figure out how to work. We wanted it to be very accessible and very, very easy to learn. Additionally, we're not a really big IT team, so we want the infrastructure footprint to be light. We want the client footprint to be light. We want it to be remotely manageable. We want it to have really good Mac support, since we're a 99.5% Mac shop here. And of course, just out of the box video conferencing functionality should be able to communicate with people internally at Pinterest as well as externally.
Great. And how did your must-haves contribute to your effort to drive this startup culture?
Yeah, so we just started opening remote offices within the last year or so. Before that, like I said, we were all consolidated in one building. And so, in order to keep the company feeling small, we needed, some way to video collaborate, let us quickly connect and feel like we're one team. Part of the ways we were able to do that is by, quickly densifying the solution and making sure that access to video conferencing was something that everyone had. That, like I mentioned a second ago, that it was really easy to learn, then it was flexible to use in different kinds of spaces. These were all things we were looking for as, features in a solution that we would roll out. And then last year, the Chromebox for Meetings beta happened, and our CEO is an ex-Googler, so he was able to put us in touch with the right people to get into the beta. And we got a few systems, we deployed them. We realized pretty quick that these things are really easy to deploy, and that the learning curve on them is really small. So, we rolled them out, and fast forward a year, and we're using them for all types of meetings now. For example, HR and recruiting does interviews with them, with remote candidates. Our product teams do product demos. Our teams that are more spread out, like our international team, do their regular stand-ups using the Chromeboxes. Sales does their weekly all hands. Managers do one-on-ones. It's being used for all kinds of stuff.
It's pretty interesting to hear all the variety of ways that Pinterest employees have used Chromebox for Meetings, and to see that it's possible that better meetings can make a positive impact on everyone's productivity. Can you provide some insight on the benefits your users have reaped, as well as any benefits that your IT team experienced as the result of simpler meetings?
Sure. The user benefits, I would start with the fact that they're everywhere. With the price point that you get with Chromebox for Meetings, we were able to make them ubiquitous pretty easily. And so it's really easy to find a room with video conferencing. There isn't any trick to finding, a place to set up VC. And now that we're spreading out, it's easier for people to collaborate quickly. Everyone knows how to use the system now, and their Chromeboxes are in all of our remote offices that have a meeting room, as well as on everybody's laptop. So it's really trivial to just get a video call set up. And I would last on the user benefits say that it's there's no learning curve to it because you're using a tool that they're already familiar with. They already use Google Apps. They've likely already used Hangouts one-on-one in the past. They know Google Calendar, so there's no extra system to learn.
There are also some IT benefits. There are not very many moving parts when it comes to deploying Chromebox for Meetings. So we're able to deploy them into all of our conference rooms. I think we have about 50 worldwide now, and any office that opens that actually has a space for collaboration gets a Chromebox. And that means that it ships out in this cute little shoebox type thing, and it's got everything in it that's required to kick off a meeting in, let's say, less than a 15-minute setup time. Its integration with Google Apps means that I can remotely support users easily from our HQ. And with just a little bit of integration, we're able to take a meeting system that comes in something about the size of a shoebox and throw it into a large space that can support up to 12 to 15 people. As you can see, we're actually in a large meeting room right now.
Yeah, and last on that, I would say the business has benefited as well by the fact that these are so low cost. We've achieved sort of ubiquitous video conferencing throughout our 50+ meeting rooms for a fraction of the cost that you could do that with one of the legacy systems. And finally, it allows us a little bit of flexibility in where we want to get real estate. So, rather than everyone consolidating into one building in San Francisco, we can spread out and do more of a neighborhood approach with, the fact that we can cheaply and quickly roll video conferencing to every room.
That sounds great. And it sounds like Chromebox for Meetings can be beneficial from many perspectives, right? From the IT pros perspective, from the user perspective, and really from an overall business standpoint. But if you had to choose one feature that you'd say is most useful from all standpoints, what would that be?
I would say the calendar integration is the most useful feature. In past experience, figuring out how to thread video conferencing into your meeting invites is something that's been very painful for users to figure out, and for IT to support. So the fact that it's right in your Google Calendar invites, there's Google's already including the video call link by default. It's just a matter of telling users that it's there and giving them some very light training on how to use presenter mode. It's the easiest video conferencing rollout that I've ever seen.
Well, thank you for all your feedback. So for everyone watching the Hangout on Air right now, Matt, it would be great and Rich if you can shed some color. If you can give them a bit of advice if they're looking for a better way to meet face-to-face. So what would you recommend the audience to consider before choosing Chromebox for Meetings?
Right. A couple things to consider would be, number one, how do you want to handle your really large spaces? Chromeboxes right now, they come with one mic, and so if you want to deploy them in a really, really large room, you may need to get creative in how you deploy the microphones with the Chromeboxes. So you might need to experiment a little bit with extension mics, or have them sort of slave off of your polycoms using the auxiliary port. We've done that in some of our larger rooms. And just figure out, like, they're terrific in rooms of most sizes, especially the small and medium rooms. But if you've got really, really large rooms, you're going to need to figure that out. And I would say, like, any legacy system integrations that you're thinking about. If you have a legacy video conferencing system, how are you going to integrate that with Chromeboxes? It's very important to us when we went and rolled this out that there weren't a lot of sort of complex integrations that we had to deal with. And fortunately for us, this was our first video conferencing system, so we didn't really have to deal with that. If you haven't got any video conferencing in place at all, Google Hangouts is a breeze. If you do have something, you're going to want to figure out where your legacy system remains deployed and where Hangouts gets deployed and how those two fit together.
Great. Well, thank you, Matt, for the tips for the audience. I think this is a good time to kick off the question and answer session. So,
Casey, can I just say something?
Sure.
So yeah, just to add to what Matt said earlier about legacy systems, and this is something that I forgot to mention earlier. We do work with interoperability partners, namely Video and BlueJeans, who provide capability to connect Hangouts and Chromebox for Meetings systems with other H323 or SIP compliance systems. So that's something that definitely works today.
Great. Well, thank you for that video. So I guess with that, we'll start off the question and answer session. A lot of you sent questions prior to the live session, so we'll do our best to answer the ones that seem to be the most popular. And let me grab my questions. All right, so the first question from the audience was, how difficult was it to deploy across all of your remote offices? So I think this one is for Matt. The audience wants to know, how difficult was it to deploy all Chromebox for Meetings as you expanded globally?
Right. That's really easy, actually. So our rule for deploying a Chromebox is when a remote office is big enough to have its own conference room, we deploy a Chromebox. And so, like most companies who are bigger will have lots more conference rooms than that. But fortunately, Chromebox comes in a box about this big, and it has all of the things in it that you need to deploy. And it's very nicely packaged with simple instructions. We don't even roll a person out to a person from IT out to a remote office when we deploy Chromebox. We can have someone from facilities do it, or even someone in the local remote office. You can easily talk them through how to hook everything up over the phone, and then the registration is very simple. You can do that in just a couple of minutes. So we've been able to deploy them to all of our remote offices without having anyone from IT go out.
Sounds great. And Chester and Vidya, if you want to add some color to that as well about the process to deploying Chromebox for Meetings, that'd be great.
Yeah, as far as deploying the actual units, like I mentioned, it's fairly easy. Typically, once we've actually deployed several units, we've seen customers typically set up units in literally under 5 minutes. With that, I think some key things to note is the actual management console. So the ability to centrally manage all of your video conferencing units from the Google Admin Console. It not only gives you visibility to the actual units, you can also check statuses on the actual units that are out there, in addition to managing the updates that you occur. Obviously, one of the key components I think we should highlight is the fact that Chromebox for Meetings runs on top of the Chrome OS platform. This really gives us not only the ability to manage the updates, but we can also scatter and automatically update maintenance-free the actual video conference units across your enterprise.
Great. So the next question is, were there any gaps with Chromebox for Meetings that you needed to overcome? And this one sounds like, again, it's for Pinterest. So Rich or Matt, would you like to answer or tell the audience if there were any gaps that you needed to overcome and how you did it?
Sure. So if you're in an enterprise environment like us, you often are going to be immersed into a meeting space that needs to be clean and needs to have a table. You don't want cords all over the place. What comes natively with the Chromebox, just straight from the vendor, is fantastic in a small space where perhaps the table is butted up against the wall and you have something like a 40-inch screen right there in front of you. What comes in the box is perfect for that type of deployment. But when you scale up to a room like we're sitting in where you have to support 12, 15 people, you have some hurdles to overcome. The first of which is all of the devices that connect to the Chromebox are done so via USB. And in order for you to have a large table like what we're sitting at now, and then run that USB signal over to the Chromebox, you may need an extension cord, or you may need to get creative with how you're sending that signal back and forth between the Chromebox itself and the device. You can do that with passive extension cables. You can do that with active transmitters and receivers. And if you guys, anyone out there is trying to do this, you can talk to any AV integration company, and I'm sure that they can help you out and getting creative in how to do that. For us, though, it's been really nice because there's only two things really to worry about: USB signal and video signal. So as long as you can get those two signals between either the camera or the microphone and the display that you're using, you can close that gap. So integration to a larger space is actually not very difficult. Just got to play with what you have in front of you.
Great. Thank you for that. And I just got this one. Is Chromebox for Meetings only for people with Google Apps? That's actually a question we get very often. I'll leave this question for Chester or Vidya. Why don't you two kind of brief the audience on how Chromebox for Meetings is valuable to everybody?
Okay, yeah, I can take that on. So while Chromebox for Meetings has been optimized for working with Google Calendar, and therefore works really well for Google Apps customers, that being said, even if you don't use Google Calendar or don't have Google Apps, you can absolutely use the product. So the experience without using Google Calendar would be optimized for typing in a meeting name using the remote. We also provide an Outlook plugin for Windows, using which you can pretty much schedule a meeting on Outlook and
it would pre-populate the meeting name as a reminder on that client, and then once you get the meeting name, you can use the remote and then join the meeting. So that's the concept of the spontaneous or ad hoc meetings that Chester demonstrated earlier. So, so to answer the question, or to summarize, absolutely both non-apps customers and apps customers can use this product.
Sounds great. The next question I have is something we also hear pretty often. Vidya, this one might be for you. What kind of camera control software is available for the external camera?
What type of camera?
What type of camera control software, if any, is available for the external camera?
So the package comes with a camera. We don't necessarily control the camera right now. There aren't any special controls available, although there are controls for the microphone and the speaker. We can actually remotely start and join the meetings from the management console. You can remotely connect or control several Chromebox Meetings devices to join a Hangout. But there isn't, if the question is around can you pan, tilt, and zoom, that is something we're working on, but we don't have that today.
Yeah, and Casey, actually, just to add to that, you know, I know that Google had made an announcement earlier this year in our blog post, but we are working on a bigger joint effort to expand to much larger video conference. So, for the record, I wanted everybody to know that we are, you know, as part of our efforts to continually enhance and also make the product, you know, not only a great fit for many use cases, but we are considering at the moment looking at expanding the footprint to much larger meeting rooms with the Chromebox.
That's good to hear. So here's another question I have from the audience. And here we go. So have you tested multiple devices connected to a single wireless access point and joined to a single Hangout to see when quality starts depleting at a noticeable point? And approximately how many devices would you say can be there before quality becomes an issue? So this sounds like a question about bandwidth for Hangouts. Correct me if I'm wrong. Vidya or Chester, do you want to take that question?
Sure. Yeah, so we actually have a guide that's available right on our support page that actually has recommended optimization for Chromebox Meetings video calls. Typically, you know, depending on the number of participants, you have both standard definition versus high definition video resolution. Assuming that the majority of enterprises will want to get as, you know, the best user experience, the best quality, especially when it relates to high definition. You know, let's say you have a number of participants up to, you know, the number of video feeds that we support currently is up to 15 simultaneous video or audio participants. You know, one of the optimization points that we'll use is, let's say, 10 participants that would actually be in a single video meeting. The actual bandwidth that you would need is approximately about 4.5 meg down. So again, we have those optimization points listed right on our actual support page. You know, especially if you're connected from a single location, you're going to want to, you know, not only do some of those tests to ensure obviously bandwidth is available, but in addition to that, we also list out the actual network specifications. So, to give you an example, specific UDP ports that you'll need to allow access on your network in order for Chromebox for Meeting to actually make a connection and also to have an optimal user experience.
And I think this question is related. If there are multiple devices in a room that have speakers, microphone, and camera, what's the ideal setup so that there's no echo or feedback?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. You know, our engineers behind the scenes have done, I think, a really great job not only getting many types of hardware and controls, but actual speaker microphone that we have at the moment is actually produced and manufactured with noise cancellation built into the actual hardware spec. So this is where the audio actually obviously is being rendered and played through the speaker. It's also the same hardware peripheral that that is actually used as a microphone. So we're relying on the hardware to do noise cancellation. It's worked very well, and we're not doing any type of noise cancellation, at least from the software side. Our recommendation, obviously, is with the current Chromebox for meeting size of actual rooms, the number of participants that we would suggest is anywhere from 2 all the way up to 10 people per video conference meeting room.
Great, thank you, Chester. So here's the next question from the audience. This should be one for you, Vidya. Why is it recommended to purchase more than one Chromebox for meetings? So Vidya, can you tell the audience why it makes sense to, if you want to try out Chromebox for meetings, why it would make sense to purchase 2?
Yeah, sure. So we typically recommend, so if you are using, if you are an existing Google Apps customer who's using Google Calendar, you can probably have a single Chromebox for meetings device set up in a conference room, and you can test the interoperability, right, between the Chromebox for meetings device in that conference room and between other users dialing in from their laptop or smartphone or tablet. But if you are not using Google Calendar and you're a non-Google Apps customer, then the best experience you're going to get is dialing between meeting rooms. And therefore, you would at least need to have 2 Chromebox for meetings devices so that the devices can talk to each other. And further, we think the more people are on the system, that will generally make the experience a lot more better, because more people are using it, you get more collaborative, and then it really transforms the meeting experience. That's part of the whole adoption curve as well.
And here's the next question. It might be for Vidya. Why do we limit the number of participants to 15 users for each meeting? And I guess it would be a good chance to kind of tell people how we meet at Google and why 15 is kind of the optimal number of participants.
Yeah, we get this request a lot where customers have been asking to see what can Google do about supporting the larger meeting room type. So we are definitely evaluating and seeing the use cases where larger meetings is required and what the optimal UX would look like to support larger meetings. That being said, even at Google, what we find is the average meeting size has got not more than 4 participants. And so you've got 4 meeting rooms, people are congregating in a conference room. And if you have a really large meeting, maybe if people are working from distributed offices, remote geographic locations, we found that not more than 15 feeds come into play, right? It's mostly if you have stand-up meetings or if you have, a team meeting where it becomes more important. So the usage for greater than 15 people meetings is very small usage needs that we have evaluated from enterprises as well as customers using it. That being said, we do realize that if you could have a 100 people meeting where there could be a requirement to get support for larger meetings, that's something that we're definitely evaluating at this point.
Great. So the next question is, legacy video conferencing systems are expensive, but they offer high quality. How does the video quality and sound compare? So Matt, I think, I believe in our conversations, you've been in an organization previously before Pinterest, where certain meeting rooms were outfitted with the legacy video conferencing systems. Can you kind of take this question and tell the audience how quality compares?
Yeah, I think the quality is very comparable to what you get from one of the other legacy systems. But I would also say that your video conferencing quality and experience has almost as much or more to do with the underlying network and the way IT supports the service and how well users are trained. I think that all sort of equally plays into the video conferencing experience. And I've been in places where they had the top of the line video conferencing technology, but the QoS didn't work right on the network, and so the quality was terrible. Or users were not trained on how to use the system, so there were constantly fails, with getting meetings up and running. In terms of just straight up video and audio quality, I feel like CFM does really, really well. And in light of the price point and the reduction in complexity that you get with the system, I think when you look at video conferencing as a whole service, it's by far and away like higher quality relative to the expense that you would go through with one of the other systems.
Thank you, Matt. Great. So this one looks like it's for video. I have an existing video conferencing solution. Can I integrate it with Chromebox for Meetings? So Vidya, can you tell the audience on how you can integrate Chromebox for Meetings with other solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So Chromebox for Meetings and Hangouts works really well with other legacy systems through our interoperability partners, Video and BlueJeans. Both Video and BlueJeans have developed products for Hangouts, which allows the users to be able to dial in from a Hangout or a Chromebox or meeting device, and thereby talk with other SIP or H323 enabled systems. So it works really well.
Thank you. And I'm going to take this as the last question because it looks like we're running out of time. Do I need Google Plus to use Chromebox for Meetings? So Video, either of you can take this one.
Yeah, I can definitely take that. So absolutely not. You're not required to sign up for a Google Plus profile. We rolled this feature out a few months ago, actually, as a result of which the Google Plus service need not be turned on in the management console. Any user, so we've reduced the barrier to entry, so any user outside can use our Hangouts link and can automatically dial into a meeting. So we've made it pretty simple.
Thank you. Well, it looks like that's all we have time for today. Thank you, everybody, for helping the audience in the Q&A, and thank you to the audience for sending in the questions in advance. We had a lot more questions come through, but as you know, we're limited on time. So if we weren't able to get to your question, we'll be sending a follow-up email after the live session. So please feel free to respond to that email with your specific question, and we'll do our best to get someone to help you out. And again, just to remind everybody, we're also sending a link to the recording of this Hangout soon. So if your colleagues couldn't make it, you can feel free to forward them the link to the recording. And before we wrap it up, I'd like to thank the speakers today, Chester, Vidya, Matt, Rich, for getting together and showcasing Chromebox for Meetings in the live demo. And to the guys at Pinterest, Matt and Rich, thanks for sharing everybody your story. And to wrap it up, thanks everybody for joining the live session, and hopefully the audience enjoyed the live session as well. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.